Hi everyone, and welcome to another video from Lanzarote Information, and this week I'm going to be giving you quick tips for first-time visitors to the island, specifically 14 of them. Now this obviously doesn't only apply to first-time visitors. I would wager that there are one or two in here that, even if you're a regular visitor, are things that you don't know about. So please watch on and enjoy, and let me know with a comment which of these were news to you or new to you. Now I'm going to rattle through these relatively quickly because there's a lot of them. As I say, there's 14. And the first of them is getting from the airport to your accommodation and then back again at the end of your trip. Now, if you're on a package holiday with Jet2, TUI, or any of those major tour operators, you've probably got transfers included in the cost of your holiday, so you don't need to worry about this part. But for the rest of you, there are basically four choices. The first is that you can hire a car to go from airport to airport. So car hire is relatively inexpensive here. You can pick a car up at the airport and drop it back there at the end of your trip. Option two is to take a taxi. There is a taxi rank just as you come out of the arrivals hall at Lanzarote Airport. A couple of things to bear in mind: at peak times, which currently are Thursdays and Saturdays, there's quite often a long queue for taxis. And the other thing to bear in mind is that while taxis to Costa Teguise and Puerto del Carmen are relatively inexpensive, you're talking perhaps 25 euros, if you're staying in Playa Blanca, it will cost you quite a lot, close to 60 euros each way for a taxi. Option three is to pre-book a transfer from the airport, so it's a specific vehicle for you and your party. We offer those on our website, lanzaroteinformation.co.uk. So if you go to the home page, you'll see, if you scroll down, there's a bit about airport transfers. These range in price from perhaps 30 euros to 70 euros, depending on party size and where you're going on the island. But there are lots of other transfer companies. For example, firstminute.com offer a transfer service on the island. So have a look around, get the best deal for yourself, for your destination and your party, and book it. And the fourth and final option is to use the public bus service, and the buses do stop in Lanzarote Airport. And if you go to arrecifebus.com, you'll be able to, or search for Intercity Bus, you'll be able to check the routes and times where they go. For many places, you'll need to go to Arrecife first and change the bus, but it's a very, very inexpensive way of getting to your location, your resort on the island. Now, next up, just a brief little bit about currency. The currency here is the euro. Each euro is divided into 100 centimos, or cents, as you would expect. They are available in denominations of 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 and 500. What I would say to you is, if you're bringing some euro cash with you, try to avoid the 200s and 500s, and if possible the 100s as well, because they can be quite hard to change, particularly in this day and age when a lot of places don't take much cash. If you are struggling with a 200 or a 500 euro note, pop into a bank and they will change it into 50s for you, which is much more usable. While we're talking about currency, there are lots of little exchange shops that you'll find all over the island, particularly in the resort areas, where you can go in and change, for example, British pounds into euros. They tend to have a sign up outside saying what rate they're giving on that day. What you will find is they generally give about 2 cents lower than the mid-bank rate. And the mid-bank rate is the rate you'll get when you Google. So if you just Google, for example, pound versus euro, whatever rate you're seeing there, let's say it's 1.18, you'll find the little shops here are offering 1.16. Now, we should talk about driving, particularly as we mentioned car hire in the first of these. Driving here is relatively easy. You need to bear in mind that we drive on the right-hand side of the road. Generally, in normal driving, if you're used to driving on the other side of the road, you won't really notice it. Where it becomes complicated for you is roundabouts, but you'll soon get the hang of it. The other thing to bear in mind when driving is that if you're used to driving a right-hand drive car and you switch to a left-hand drive car, the gear lever will be in the wrong position. So you might want to consider hiring an automatic, and it's just one less thing to think about. Road signage is good. You won't really need GPS as long as you've got a reasonable picture of where you want to go on the island. The beauty of Lanzarote is that from pretty much anywhere you can see the ocean, which enables you to orient yourself and work out which direction up or down the island you're travelling in. Fuel is cheap compared to most Northern European countries, and the gas stations here tend to have attended service. So you just pull up at the pump, whether it's unleaded or diesel, which is called gas oil here, and tell the operator how many euros worth you want. Or you can say lleno, that's L-L-E-N-O, which is pronounced lleno, which means you want them to fill the tank for you. Let's talk about duty free. The island, as you probably know, is duty free, so there is no duty on perfumes, alcohol and cigarettes. And tobacco, obviously. What that means is that there are an awful lot of duty-free shops, particularly in the tourist resorts on the island, that specialise in selling those things. And you will certainly find that they are relatively inexpensive. Don't leave buying your duty-free until you get to the airport shop, because although there is a duty-free shop at the airport here, it's quite a bit more expensive than buying duty-free on island. You'll also find that our VAT rate, which is called IGIC here, is much lower than the rest of the mainland of Europe. Our IGIC is 7%, whereas in Spain, IVA, which is VAT, is 21%. So you can make some significant savings on pretty much anything you buy here. What you will see in the resorts is an awful lot of electrical shops selling inexpensive cameras, tablets, mobile phones, and anything electrical. Just have a bit of caution about those. I've come across quite a few readers and viewers over the years who've come unstuck by buying, for example, an iPad and then finding out it's actually a 2 or 3 generations old model, although it was sold to them in a box as brand new. Do a bit of research before you go in, know what price you should be expecting to pay for something, and if the price is too good to be true, I would walk away, because it probably is too good to be true. Just a quick one, there are 3 main tourist resorts on the island. If you are a first-time visitor, you are probably staying in one of those. Puerto del Carmen is the oldest resort. It started as a resort in the late 1960s with Hotel Farallones. Costa Teguise is a man-made resort a little way up the coast from Arrecife, and Playa Blanca is the big resort in the southernmost part of the island. All 3 have their pluses and minuses. They all have their own adherents. I've heard so many people over the years say Playa Blanca is the best resort, and then others will say no, Costa Teguise is the best resort. The bottom line is do your research and find out which one would suit you better. But the other piece of advice I'd give you is to get out and see some of the island. However you're going to do that, it might be as part of an excursion, or take a bus trip, or take your hire car out and visit some of the non-resort places of Lanzarote, because there are some stunningly beautiful places that are very genuinely Spanish, very genuinely Canarian, and aren't aimed at tourists, and you'll find them enlightening and beautiful. Quick tip about the weather. The weather here is generally good all year round, but we are close to the equator, we're very close to the Sahara Desert, and we have almost no pollution in our air. What that means is that the ultraviolet component of the sun here is very, very high, and you'll particularly feel it if you're coming over from a winter spent in Northern Europe. So please, please, please wear good quality sun cream and reapply it often. Wear a hat, particularly if you're follically challenged in the way that I am, to protect the top of your head from the sun. Let's mention tipping in restaurants. It's not expected. People generally here, when they work in a restaurant or a bar, are paid a living wage. So tips are a bonus. I can only share with you what we do, and you need to make your own decisions about what you do about tipping in restaurants and bars. In restaurants, if the service has been good, we will generally tip 10%, and very rarely more than that. If we're going to a bar or a cafe and having a couple of drinks, we'll use the shrapnel, if you like, the loose change that's left over. So let's say I've popped in for a coffee and the coffee comes to €1.80, I'll leave €2. So there's a little bit for the staff. But as I say, tipping is not expected. It's fairly common, particularly in the non-resort areas, for people not to leave tips. So it's your choice. There's no pressure on you to do so. Excursions, let's talk about those. There are any number of things you can do on this island, and because we have 3.4 million tourists visiting us every year, it means we can give them a massive range of things to do. You can play golf here, you can go on a submarine, you can go out on a catamaran, you can do go-karting. We have an open-air cinema. The list goes on and on and on. And I would advise you, and this is the tip, to spend a bit of time prior to your holiday planning what you're going to do each day, because if you leave it until you're here, it's possible that whatever you want to do is fully booked. By pre-booking it and often prepaying it, it means you're not having to find the cash on the day, and you've got the certainty that whatever you and the family want to do, you can do. We'll talk about tap water next. There is a bit of a myth that I've heard often that the tap water here will make you ill. It won't. It's perfectly safe to drink. In Spanish we call it potable. It's drinkable. The thing to bear in mind though is that the tap water here comes from a desalination plant. So it's desalinated seawater. It just doesn't taste fantastic. And that's why pretty much everybody here drinks bottled water. But really don't stress about drinking tap water. If you're dying of thirst and you need a drink in the night, you'll be fine. And tied in with that myth about tap water is not having ice in drinks, which is the most uncivilized thing I've ever heard. You have to have ice in your drinks. And all the ice here is made by a company called Coubertin that makes ice cubes from filtered water. So they are perfectly clean and perfectly safe to use. And I would make it compulsory that you have to have ice in your drinks. And while we're talking about drinks, let's discuss milk. We don't have cows on the island, so all of the fresh milk you'll find in the supermarkets here has been imported, usually from one of the other islands. But it means the shelf life is relatively short on it, and that's why you'll find that 90% of those of us who live here on the island actually drink the long life milk, the UHT milk, because the fresh milk just goes off too quickly. Next tip is about Wi-Fi. I promise you, you won't struggle for Wi-Fi here in Lanzarote. We have ultra-fast fibre all over the island, in even the most rural of areas. For example, at my house, which is in Aria, in the north of the island, in a small village, we have 600 megabytes up and down fibre internet. That means that almost every bar and restaurant on the island also has broadband, high-speed Wi-Fi internet. So they all tend to run a Wi-Fi service for clients. Just ask for the code, or if there is one. We also have 4G almost all over the island now, and 5G in probably 70% of it. So if you are going to use your cell phone and roam, you'll find that the response is very, very fast here. Just 3 to go, so hang with us. Have I missed anything that I should have said? Let me know with a comment. Is there anything I've said that was a surprise to you? Again, let me know with a comment. But next up, the first of the 3 that are remaining, child friendliness. And people often ask me, are children welcome or are children not welcome in some places? The answer is children are welcome everywhere here in Lanzarote. The Spanish have a very good and healthy attitude towards family, and when you rock up to a restaurant, no one will ever say to you, you can't bring the kids in. The same with the bars. Kids are welcome everywhere. We don't have weird rules that ban children until they're a certain age from going into a bar or restaurant. So yes, they are welcome everywhere. Don't worry about it. And a quick tip about shopping, assuming again that you are staying in one of the tourist resorts, you'll find there are lots of small supermarkets in them. Spa have a chain in most of the resorts. Iperdino Express, which is one of the big supermarkets here, have the express stores. They're smaller stores in the resorts. and they're fine. You'll get most things that you need there. Some of them even have butcher's counters and bread baking and all that kind of stuff. But you will pay a slight premium for the fact that they are in the resorts and they're paying a much higher rent and for the premises. If you are here for enough time to do a full and proper food shop, I would advise you to head out of the resorts and either go to Playa Honda or Arrecife, where you'll find the main supermarkets like Mercadona, Lidl and Eurospar, where you'll get your goods at a much lower price, or not much lower, that's an exaggeration, at a lower price than you will in the smaller resort stores. And the last thing I want to talk about is medical issues. It's very, very important that you have medical insurance if you are traveling to Lanzarote from another country. If you are entitled to an EHIC card, which is the European Health Card, or a GHIC card, which is the British version of the European Health Card, make sure you have that with you too. The EHIC and GHIC provide emergency medical cover to you. They don't provide cover for ongoing treatment once the emergency has been dealt with. Just to give you an example of that, my father-in-law had an attack here, a heart attack here. He was looked after brilliantly via his GHIC card by the health service here. The ambulance was all covered, the stay in the hospital was covered until he was stabilised. But when it came to him needing an operation on his heart and the stent being put in, to solve future problems, that wasn't covered by the health service here and by his GHIC card, and that was the point at which his private medical insurance kicked in, and they looked after him from that point until he got back to his home country, which was the UK. So make sure you have your EHIC, your GHIC, and that you have private medical cover as well. You'll find in each of the three resorts there is a Centro Salud, a health centre you can go to for kind of minor things. You can also go to the pharmacies for minor things like cuts and burns and headaches and stomach aches and things like that, and they will give you what you need. Finally, you will find a lot of private doctors in the resorts, and it's fairly obvious they're private doctors and not part of the health system. So if you don't have a GHIC and you don't have cover, visit one of those and you can pay them for whatever service you need. And that's it. I've rattled through them, I know. 14 tips for first-time visitors to Lanzarote. I hope that's been useful to you and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give us a like. We would really, really appreciate that. I'm going to link you up to a video which I think you might be interested in, and it's called 7 Mistakes Not to Make in Lanzarote. And this, if you like, is the reverse of the tips I've just given you. It's the mistakes people make when they arrive on the island for the first time, and hopefully it will help you to avoid them. We also produce a weekly news video every Saturday, so subscribe to our channel if you would enjoy that. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.